Well, hey, hey, you. Welcome to Bonehead.
Hold on.
Somebody got the giggles.
I don't really have the giggle.
I
Chad
love
gave me the COVID brain.
Joe can't see it on our end, James. I don't know if you did, but right when he said, "I don't got,"
Yeah, it paused.
it paused, and it was,
Yeah.
Funny.
and I was looking down with my COVID brain. I'm like,
And Chad
What?
gave me the COVID brain through the internets. I've seen the brain scans.
oh.
Oh,
By the way, to our
turns out
listeners,
someone told me he had a drinking problem.
to our listeners, I don't have COVID. I just got the second round of vaccine this morning, and I am literally pooped.
He's pooped because the government
James,
is
I
now
need you to come
tracking
with
his
it.
ass, and he's been all over town. And the
James-
government tracker uses electricity from his body, and it sucks him dry. That's the reason why you all are tired after getting the shot. Don't take it.
James, I really am pooped. Can you come over here with the hose, please?
I mean, we're talking about the water hose, right?
Yeah, that's the ticket.
You're
I
going to
need
have
an
to hose
adult.
out all that poop.
I need an adult. I ain't gonna find one here, but I need one.
Poop
Well-
spelled
Oh.
backwards is blue.
MOON.
So-
That's poop.
This episode is about Star Trek. Now, gentlemen, we've done Star Trek before. What in the wide world of sports are we doing here again?
Well, Joe, it turned out that a lot of people liked this Star Trek thing, and that they
And
decided
they don't
that
watch
they
the
would-
show.
And they don't
Hey,
watch this show.
Hey,
Chad's got it there
every time we do a Star Trek episode, we get pretty good numbers. If
for
we would
us.
Yeah, well, I mean for us. Yeah, I mean we ain't doing Paramount Plus numbers yet.
No.
Unless Paramount Plus wants to air us. Come on, money. Anyway.
Where did Green Acres take place at? What was the name of it?
Oh, they
It was
had
in
their
Wisconsin somewhere, right?
They
Yeah,
had
but
their
what's
own
the name of the
spinoff.
town?
It was
Well, Green Acres was the spinoff to Petticoat Junction. Ha ha! Petticoat Junction. So
'Cause-
now that we have
that
encompassed
universe-
Petticoat Junction, all 42 people.
That universe is, but it also included the Beverly Hillbillies because they all crossed over at different times.
Yeah.
You see, Mr. Haney. Anyway,
Hooterville?
Hooterville.
Yeah, Hooterville.
Yeah, all those shows were canceled when they decided that.
By the way, that's
city-
misleading. What do you all think about that?
A little bit.
It's a little bit misleading.
I've never checked the owl level of a town before.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant by that.
I just assumed that you were not being. At
Anybody
all
else have to suffer
misogynist.
through PJ Mask?
Yes.
No.
PJ Mask, where the
There's a
PJ,
PJ
Mask.
Mask. Oh my God, he rolls around singing it, Chad.
I
Does Haley and Abby sing it?
Yes.
Okay,
PJ
so the Owl
Mask.
Boy, I keep calling him Owl Girl, whatever her name is. I keep calling her Moist Towlette. He gets mad at me. But
You
anyway,
need to-
Owlette's automobile flying thing is straight out of Owl's flying thing out of The Watchmen. It's almost a direct ripoff.
Oh yeah.
That's all I want to say.
You know
We're
what
talking
I
about
think.
Star Trek here.
By the
You
way,
know what I think about your entire outlet or whatever conversation.
Moist Towlette.
You know what, Joe? I just don't give a hoot.
and by the way, I know we're talking about Star Trek,
Orville.
but does anybody know
Circle.
what the zip code for Green Acres was for Hooterville?
666.
40516.
Really?
Yep. So
That sounds
apparently
like
it's
somebody
close.
else's zip code.
Yeah.
And it's one off from my zip code.
And not too far from mine.
James, how far of it is it? Mine, it's only one off from mine.
It's one off from mine as well.
So
but
you and I
it's
have
in
the same
different-
zip code, right?
No,
We don't?
we don't.
I did not know that.
Different directions. I believe yours ends in one numeral and mine ends in the numeral 2 above that, which is 1 above. See, I've given away our zip code.
Now
apparently,
everyone
like,
knows where we live.
And apparently, like Springfield, they actually never say what the state of Hooterville, what state Hooterville resides.
know why?
in.
State
It's
of
a state of-
Hooterville is in.
It's a
I
state of
don't-
chaos.
Oh, that's just as good as anything else I could.
So
say.
welcome to our Green Acres episode. Who wants to
Green
talk about
Acres.
this?
Green Acres.
It's the place to be.
Farm
Farm
living.
living.
Is the life for me. Well, I tell you, the kids out there, they love the Green Acres.
Oh,
No,
They
they
find it
don't.
very sus.
Oh,
You get them started on it, and they just won't. They won't quit.
That Arnold is sick. All right, I'll stop. These are jokes that we were making at one another before we started here. So what we're talking about is Star Trek
Andy,
Discovery.
get away from my Sergeant Rock.
What?
Good girl.
Did he say,
Good
Andy, get away
girl.
from my Sergeant Rock? Andy, get away from my Sergeant Rock.
He's twice the man
Aunt
you
B
are,
referred to her woman parts as Sergeant Rock.
My puppy dog just tried to lick my old
Puppy
comic
parts?
books.
No, it's better than your puppy parts. Can we talk about,
She's a good baby.
are you talking about the dog?
Hey, bye.
I think he was
Baby.
petting his Sergeant Rock. So, back to Star Trek Discovery
Yeah, let's get on that.
instead of getting on your Sergeant Rock.
Said
Well,
no one ever.
I'm
So-
sure
so-
someone said it.
So
No, no,
I'll start this.
Yeah,
as a-
so-
as a
so
Star Trek
Discovery,
conversation.
James,
So
Why do people hate it? Can I, before you even get started, why do your kind hate it?
I don't know. Well, I know.
And I'll be honest with you, I didn't. So sorry, James, I don't mean to cut you off.
No,
Yes,
go
you did.
ahead.
But yeah,
Who the
kinda
hell
did.
am I?
Yeah, you did.
But I don't
I
go
don't
in
know.
with
Oh,
any.
it's fine,
Glenn's
Jed, just
favorite,
keep
by the
going.
way. By the
I
way,
don't-
Glenn said in a message the other day, James is his favorite to me, and I'm the only one on the message, so you know it's got to be true. Here, here.
I'm like the Charles in charge of Bonehead. The
Cut me
hell
deep,
did I
Glenn.
just say?
Well, he says James does the funny, obscure shit that no one else gets, and I can't argue with that.
Lee Van Cleef,
Leaf.
Kung Fu movies.
Chad, go.
No,
so-
it's just I've been watching Discovery
yeah.
and I really enjoy it. And I didn't know of any of the hate. I've been watching it with no kind of idea of what people thought of it. And you all talking about fans hating it is kind of shocking to me because I genuinely love Star Trek Discovery.
I genuinely really like it. Yeah, you know what? I love some episodes. I tell you, I really liked the first. I did not like the pilot. The first episode was boring to me, but after I got into that, Jason Isaacs' character, James,
Lorca, Captain Lorca.
my still out of. I'm working on the third season right now. And we're going to finish this up as Chad and I finish the third season. Hopefully, in the next few days, we're going to do a 2-parter. Still, my favorite character. At least my well. Can we talk about spoilers?
Well, I mean, I don't think
It's
we
been
should
on for a few years.
Well, let's not do spoilers this episode. We'll talk about the entire gestalt of the show next episode.
But
So
I
this will
love
be
some
our-
of the characters.
Well, and that's the thing. I think that's also why it gets hate, though,
Why?
is because
It actually has drama.
yes, characters disagree. And if you look back, that was one of the things, and the Roddenberry purist will say, and I think it's even mentioned in Panic on the Bridge, which is funny because there was nothing but chaos around the set. if you watch
Chaos
that
around the
documentary.
making of that show, The Next Generation.
But one of Roddenberry's rules were that by the time of the Next Generation, everybody would get along. It would be the Federation would be encountering problems, but there would not be problems in the Federation. Matter of fact, some of the better episodes of the Next Generation, such as the conspiracy episode, Roddenberry didn't necessarily like. It got turned down. I don't know if anybody knows this, but it was
No, I
turned
didn't
down
know that.
because it was too controversial. He said, no, this would imply there's problems with the Federation. The Federation there can't be problems with the Federation. And Deep Space Nine gave us a little bit of that, where you had the Maquis the people that broke away and formed the Maquis.
And Section 39.
Is 31.
That's what I said.
And all of that stuff. But one of the big things that a lot of people hate was that, Discovery kicks off in that pilot, in one of the first couple episodes. The main protagonist we follow for the few episodes, and I would argue really the protagonist of the series, so it does do a much better job as it goes along of being the entire cast. Michael Burnham
Yeah.
is I mean, I guess this is a mild spoiler if you haven't seen any of it, but she's a war criminal at one point.
She's in
Mhm.
prison.
She's in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is not a good person. Well, in the eyes of the Federation.
In the eyes of the Federation, yeah. She's also not my favorite character by a long
No.
shot.
Mm-mm.
But I think she's a fascinating character as they go to explore her further. And I think the things that I will say, the people who seem to have a problem with the show and the legitimate problems that people have, quote unquote, legitimate, that I can at least say, well, I see where you're coming from, are one thing. But there's a lot of people that said, well, this isn't Roddenberry's original vision. Well, no, because it does have, there is an entire scene in in one of the first 2 episodes where I guess it's in the first episode, she attacks her own captain.
Yes.
Mhm.
She does. I mean, and so the people were like, "Well, that's." To me, I don't have a problem with it because I think it's one of the things. The other thing that made a lot of people upset is it's set during the timeline of the original series, actually 10 years before Captain Kirk.
Right.
Mhm.
And so a lot of people are like, "Oh, it's going to be like Enterprise." So you had the people that were diehard Enterprise fans saying, "Oh, it'll be like Enterprise," and it's not. And by the way, I love Enterprise.
Yeah, and can
As
we
do
just go
I.
ahead real quick and say Enterprise is the one we all agree Enterprise is that's the one that everyone hates that I don't understand either.
Yeah.
I don't. Well, and I think
I
it's one of the
didn't
shows
care for it
now-
at first, and then I started watching it, and I love almost every character on that show.
Yes.
Whereas there are
Every-
other Star Trek episodes, other series, I cannot say that about. I don't think that about the Next Generation.
No,
But
no.
Enterprise, I love all. Damn, is there a bad
Yeah.
character on Enterprise, Chad? I'm
Uh,
asking Chad because we've all seen, or have we all three seen almost every episode of Star Trek up until the new set?
I'm
Oh,
through
yes.
at least even my
I have
even-
seen every single episode of Star Trek.
and
and
the only thing, though, I am missing a few of the animated episodes. That is what I am
I
missing.
have burned through those too. So, James, you told me once that I've actually seen more Star Trek than some Trekkies because
Yeah,
a
I
lot
was
of
gonna say, because
Trekkies.
there are a lot of
Trekkers.
Trekkies that stopped. Well, and by the way, I still use Trekkies because that's what it was when I was growing
I
up.
got
And I cling to my anyway.
number one corrected me.
Now number one. I mean, who's
It
number
was
one?
very
is it?
nice. He's the nicest guy. So I did.
If
not
he
get mad.
hold on, let me be even more obscure. If it ain't Majel Barrett number one, I don't care. Anyway, by the way, there's 4 Cage fans out there screaming "yeah" right now. Anyway, but I think that's the problem that a lot of people had was
again.
it again. We're going back in time, and I guess this is technically a spoiler, but that eventually got fixed as well.
Because it didn't
Um,
make any sense in the timeline of how advanced that technology was.
Well, and the things they did to address that I liked, and I think it goes back to you have to be an Uber fan to note some of the stuff because there's that one throwaway line where I guess spoilers. I guess I am going to have to.
We're gonna have to have spoilers. So
Yeah.
just
Okay.
if you
where Pike comes in because Pike was the captain of the Enterprise. Spoiler in season 2. That's
Mhm.
going to be the character you're going to follow, at least in part. And if you know anything about the Star Trek mythos, Captain Pike's story doesn't exactly end thumbs up. And it plays around with that.
No, but he gets to hang out with Rebecca Romaine in space, and I'm jealous.
And that's, by the way, for those obscure fans, that is Majel Barrett part 2.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I'm jealous of both of them, but
uh,
mainly Rebecca Romaine.
and so the other side of that then is that he is actually, for a starship captain, he's a technophobe. And by the way, that's a well planned thing because he has the entire thing. I want the 3-dimensional view screens disabled. I hate those things. I want 2-dimensional. I want it to be a view screen. I don't like. And if you go back and watch The Cage, he won't even use the digital pads. They
Mhm.
hand him a clipboard, an old Earth style clipboard in The Cage. It is not even the pads like Captain Kirk used in this, and so I say all that to say there's a lot of little Easter eggs planted there, and there's some obvious ones too, like where there's an episode where Saru asked to be compared to the best captains, and the names are April, Pike, I forget the other ones, but they're all names that Star Trek fans would know. Decker, I think, is on there.
Mhm.
And so I say all that to say I think that the big problem a lot of people well, not a lot of people, I think there's some people that just have biases that impact their ability to enjoy the show. And I hate to say that about people who claim to be Star Trek fans, but there's some people that are upset that it is frontlined by a strong African American character.
Do you really
a
think
female.
that's it?
There are, oh dude, I don't spend too much time on Twitter. It'll make
I
me-
won't. I can't.
Yeah, I'm not
yeah.
going to.
Yeah.
Because I have read posts, and I literally very rarely do I block people. Matter of fact, I don't block these people, but I do mute them if they keep going on long enough. Where it's like, well, that would never be. She would never. And I just want to say, and I'm a huge Star Trek fan, but it makes me pull that William Shatner from Saturday Night Live, where I just want to scream, dude, it's a TV show.
Yeah.
yeah.
None of this wouldn't be how it would work. Really, walk me through the Heisenberg compensators then. because if you know how everything else would work, I want to get that transport technology working. Anyway, so I think that is part of it. For some people, very few, I hope very few, but I think the other part about it is that it does show that dysfunctional side of Star Trek. And I think to a lesser extent, some people have problems with Lower Decks because it does the same thing, where you see the power differential between the ensigns, the lower class, the new recruits versus what it is to be the captains.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So I think that's why some people, but I love that. I think that's one of the things that, and to me, and I'll catch hate from some people for this, but to me, as somebody that grew up loving the original series, it has that same spirit as the original series. How many times did Kirk go, "Oh, that's our orders. Yeah, let's go over here instead." Right?
I agree with that. I'm just always curious. So I'm not gonna out him here, but we interviewed a celebrity, a super fan, and he didn't care for it, but he didn't want to go on record about it, right?
Yeah,
Right.
Well, we've had several.
In fact,
and
that
by
was the
way,
only question. There was only a couple of things he told us not to ask him. And that was one
Yeah.
of them.
Well, and I think that's one of the things too, because it's one of the things that I struggle the most with is, and I've now watched it through. I'm on my third watch through, I guess, and since it went off the air, I should say. Some of them I caught when they originally aired, but I don't have, and I know several people do, and I may catch flack from this because we do have people that have watched our show because we've done Star Trek guests.
Yeah.
And I know several of them that have posted things on Twitter or reshared us on Twitter are Voyager fans. I have a hard time with Voyager.
That's the hardest one for me.
It's my least favorite.
Now it has some great talent. Bob Picardo is the doctor, Robert Picardo. I don't know why I felt like
why did
Bob
you? Yeah.
Well, because Bob's been on the show and has answered our emails so many times.
Anyway, BP and me, we were talking about it, and I said,
You
BP.
met him though. I've never met him.
He is the best one.
That is my favorite story I have from meeting Robert Picardo. Though is we're at the convention and my wife bought me the tickets. It's our first anniversary. And we go up.
Hold on, James. Is this when you used to buy tickets?
Yeah, that's when we used to be able to do things. You ever do things? You used to be able to do that. Anyway, and we went up. We were. It was the 40th anniversary, so that tells you how long ago it was. And we Nimoy, Shatner, and all those, and that's why Dana bought me the tickets. And we went up and we got to meet him. It was all cool. But one of the other guests was Robert Picardo, and Dana didn't really know. And he's coming around doing table greetings, like they have it.
If you've ever been to one that was done by
Creation, if you
Creation,
get as long as you get that gold ticket,
gold platinum ticket, you're in good shape. And you're not, you're screwed.
But they did a dessert social for the 40th anniversary, and the actors came out except for Shatner and Nimoy. But everybody else came out and wandered around, and Robert Picardo was heading toward our table, and I'll never forget. My wife stood up and screamed. In my memory, she screamed and pointed, but she literally grabbed my hand with one arm and went, "Oh my God, that's Coach Cutlip!" And I said, "What? Coach Cutlip's here?" And I said, "What?" And she goes, "From Wonder Years, it's Coach Cutlip." And so in my mind, and actually once I tagged him on Twitter and I was like, "Hey, just FYI, my wife refers to you every time you're on screen as, hey, Coach Cutlip's in this show." So there you go. But anyway, I say all of that to say,
yeah, you lost me.
Well, I say all of that to say with Voyager, I think my problem with Voyager is what some people are trying to, well, I shouldn't say trying. If they feel this way, that's fine. That it feels like it's rehashing certain things, or it's trying to become something else. And my argument there is, to me, Voyager, the premise felt a lot like Lost in Space. It was Star Trek Lost in Space, and that's fine. But it didn't necessarily be everything I wanted it to be. And again,
the least of the shows. It and the animated series are the least of the shows.
Well, and I know some people are diehard fans. And by the way, there's some episodes of Voyager that I do think are well done.
Yeah.
You and I have a friend who's a diehard fan because of Janeway, and there's a female captain, and it meant the world to her. Right?
Well, and I think there's some episodes that actually go, okay, well, it's the one that gets brought up the most on Twitter, and I've seen it actually lead to fights on Twitter. The entire Tuvix episode. And it is a somewhat what happens. There's a transporter accident. Two characters are fused together, Tuvok and Neelix. Which, by the way, if you're going to fuse two characters together, you just fused Oscar and Felix together, the odd couple. But they become a new species, a new being, and they finally figure out how to separate them. But that being doesn't want to be destroyed. That is an interesting premise, and to the credit of Kate Mulgrew, she's the one that, because even the doctor says, I can't make this decision. It violates my protocol. That is a living being, and we're going to bring other people back. We have to destroy it, and I cannot do that. That episode is good. And it gets to something that I don't think, but then you get other episodes like Threshold where Janeway and Tom Paris have lizard babies together. So, I mean, it's like any other Star Trek. It's a mixed bag.
Yeah. And and my thing was so Voyager is my least favorite, but with Voyager, and we're supposed to be talking about Discovery, but Voyager it's still Star Trek. So there are redeeming episodes that I will watch for whatever reason. It's not, when I say it's my least favorite, I'm still not bashing Voyager. It's just,
oh no. I will. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I just said I'm on my third watch through on Netflix, so I'm not exactly throwing stones here.
But with Discovery, and I think this is why I enjoy Discovery as much, which is why DS9 is probably my favorite Star Trek. It is. I will not hold any.
Agreed.
I won't lie. It is my favorite Star Trek, but Discovery is getting close to it, and I think it's the internal conflicts. The fact that you don't see those internal conflicts on Next Gen. You see a little bit with Bones in the original, and then Voyager, there's essentially none.
Well, no, and that's we also
and Enterprise is kind of the same way. There's some minor squabbles, but nothing, and to the extent that DS9 and Discovery.
No. Well, I would say, and that's what I was going to say with the. Sorry, I had brain freeze all of a sudden.
That's okay.
Oh my God, the COVID brain spreading.
I told you he gave it to us. He gave us the Edward Furlong. Don't ask it. It's only funny in my head.
But
go ahead, James.
What I wanted to bring this up because Star Trek Discovery was announced way back in yesteryear in the pre-COVID days, and a year that at the time was called 2015. Yes,
2015.
Now, 1 year before the world went to shit.
2015.
Did you say 1 year?
1 year before.
Oh, I was like, that's way before COVID. Now I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Before we got Agent Orange.
Oh, anyway. So 2015 was a bad year for Star Trek fans because we lost Leonard Nimoy and Anton Yelchin.
Oh, you know where he's at. He's in the grave somewhere.
Or is he? Got to Genesis Planet.
Do. I just pissed off one of our super fans, Mary. I'm sorry. She loves Leonard Nimoy. I'm sure he was a nice guy. I'm sorry.
He was nice to me. Very nice to my wife.
Yeah.
But
I'm sure he was, as he, kept, staring at her breasts.
Well, me and him had that in common. See, we had a lot. Anyway.
It's my turn to look. Sorry. Keep going, James.
Listen, if Spock wants to...
Spock wants what the Spock wants.
If he wants to have Ponfar with my missus, I take that as a compliment.
Spock.
By the way,
Spock wants to dock on those boobies.
By the way, I just want to say this is probably going to lead to my divorce. That one line, that'll be the breaking point. She's held on this anyway.
What, Spock docking?
2015.
It's kind of like space docking, Chad. Only it's bad. Keep going, James.
So so the Star Trek relaunch of the films, 2009, the Kelvin universe, all of that stuff happened, and it looked like things were going well. Then Leonard Nimoy passed away. The last Star Trek movie underperformed, though it still made money and will continue to do so. But now we're, by the way, they announced this week that a new script, a third script. We had Quentin Tarantino's out there for a while. We had, actually, I guess this is a fourth attempt. They're going to, anyway, more on that for the second episode. I'll pull up some stuff. But 2015, there was also this survey that was done, and I found this fascinating because it never occurred to me this way, because one of the risks of doing Star Trek Discovery was that for younger generations, it had been off the air during their lifetime. Like I think about, I got exposed to the original series before the Next Generation came out when I was
I'm
4.
glad he said more after exposed, but keep
Mhm.
going.
But so there was this to the author. So Walt Hickey, not Walter Hickey, Walt Hickey, did an article for 538, which is a website that tracks movies and politics and stuff like that. And the title of his article, written November 2nd, 2015, was Star Trek Needs This New Show to Win the Next Generation. And in it, he includes a survey that was done that says, depending on your age group, how much of your life has Star Trek been on the air? Going back to people that were born in 1940 through people born in 2000, I think about 15. And it never occurred to me, but one of the things that he says is a Star Trek show has been on TV for at least a large portion of most American lives. For a 28-year-old born in 1987, again, this was written in 1928 or 1915,
Dude.
2017, 2015 is what I was going for. Anyway, a Star Trek show for a 28-year-old born 1987, for example, a live-action Star Trek program has been on the tube for 68% of their life. But if you jump forward to anybody born after 2005, there was no such critter.
Yeah, no, well, there's certain people of our age, and we've worked with them. All three of us have who watch the Next Generation all the time in syndication. They watch. I almost said Battle Space 9. They watched. Let's write that.
Battle Space.
We'll call it Battle Space 10. Anyway.
Yeah, well, look, Corman will do it, right?
Corman will do it.
Anyway,
and Voyager, you're right, and they had that on for, was it almost a 15-year run in syndication?
From 1987 till 2005. That's 18 straight years of Star Trek. Usually 2 shows on at once.
Is that considered 2 generations?
I mean, probably definitely for television. Yes.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that also came out in the survey then was he did a follow-up to the survey, and he actually called the results of the survey. He titles it, "If they don't live longer, franchises won't prosper." And his argument was that when you surveyed these diehard Star Trek fans and looked at their age, the biggest group of fans were 45 to 60 in 2015.
Really?
And then 18 to 29, 32% of 18 to 29-year-olds said that they at least had somewhat of a knowledge of Star Trek. But 49, so 50% of people, when the survey was taken, said yes, diehard, 45 to 60 years of age, almost half the people they surveyed. And then you see that drop for 18 to 29, and below that, it drops dramatically, significantly down, because there was no new ones on. And so unless you had somebody introduce you, unless you had a parent or older sibling that was a fan, you weren't going to know. So I went back and pulled this article and did some of this quote unquote historical research here, because I think it's important to put this in perspective about when they were doing this show. It was not without risk that, has the time of Star Trek passed on? Now, that argument, by the way, happened when they did a certain show and when they greenlit a certain show in early 1986 about this Next Generation as well.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
And they did the most confusing show episode ever, Encounter at Farpoint, that no one can still explain the damn plot to.
Well, and I was going to say, and the flip side of that was that there was this other that's and what I wanted to get to when we were talking about people hating Discovery, go back and read the comments of when Star Trek The Next Generation came out. They were brutal to much of that show. Matter of fact, George Takei even said they watched the first 3 or 4 episodes of The Next Generation, and I think he did an interview once where they asked him what he thought of it, and he had only seen through like The Naked Now, which is basically just a remake of The Naked Time from the original series. And his critique was, we've already done all this. They're doing to say it's terrible. Mm-hmm. And he said later on, of course, as the show went on and it created its own path, he was, it's great now. And so that's what I will say. I would imagine that if we could jump forward 5-6 years, all the things that people are saying about Discovery will feel like what people were saying about The Next Generation when it came out.
Mm-hmm.
That's my bet. But anyway,
So, what do you all like about it?
I do like the character. I think it's interesting because I think one of the tricks that Discovery pulls pretty well is that it's the first Star Trek show where the human commentary is done by a human. And what I mean by that is if you go back, you see the original series, Spock is our gateway to human commentary. The Next Generation had Data, or if you're Dr. Pulaski, Data. And then, Deep Space Nine, you had Odo. But even though we have Saru in Discovery, the Doctor in Voyager, even though we have Saru in Discovery, most of the commentary about how difficult it is to understand humans is actually done by Burnham, Michael Burnham, because she was raised by Vulcans.
Yeah.
And that's because of a war with the Klingons.
Yep.
Which again sets up the original series nicely. Why did Kirk have issues with the Klingons? Well, there you go.
So, let's go through the history. So when we heard about this series, what did we get excited about?
Well, it was Nicholas Meyer was attached at one point. You had Brian Fuller,
Brian Fuller was going to be the showrunner, and
Yeah.
we're all fans. Brian Fuller made the brilliant. I forgot what I was going to say.
Hannibal.
He started out writing. Would you say Hannibal? Yeah,
Yeah.
Hannibal, and then the pie killer guy thing too. That's another good show. What's it called?
Pushing Daisies.
Pushing Daisies. Brian Fuller has a distinct voice for television.
And did the underappreciated and never ordered a series, but they did air the pilot, Mockingbird Lane.
I've still never seen that. I don't even
I've never
know
seen
to
it
see that at.
It was available. They streamed it once on TV Live, and then for a while you could stream it through, I want to say, ABC's website, because they aired it for Halloween, but I don't know if that's still available there or not. But Eddie Izzard as Grandpa Munster was. It's a darker show, by the way, than the Munster.
He didn't last long. Nicholas Meyer didn't last past the first season on the writing staff. But like I said, once I got past the pilot and got into the second episode and it kind of took off, I fell in love with it. And I think the reason why I was able to on that first season is I just loved what's his face's character of why can't I think of I'm sorry, I had it pulled up.
Jason
Isaacs character. Jason Isaacs to me is one of the most underrated actors working today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the fact that he only lasted one season on that show for obvious reasons drives me crazy. But he was fantastic. Because to me, and I've said this on the here all the time, melodrama is only as good as its villain. And damn, he's a good villain.
Do you think, by the way, and I guess we're going to get spoiler. I'm just going to go whole hog in it. There's a conspiracy theory that we're going to see him again, but it will actually be him, not the other him.
Right.
And that we'll see that when Pike has to go and rescue him or something. So.
Right. For what's that show going to be called?
Strange New World.
Strange New World.
No, it's going to be called Star Trek Strange New Worlds.
Thank you, Chad.
You're welcome.
So
I'll be here for another 5 minutes.
I loved him. I love Saru.
Yeah.
Saru's great. And I love, I even like some of the chemistry, like James and I were talking, and like one of the best chemistry in the show is Reno and Stamets.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping I get more of that. So far, I'm not getting enough of it, in my opinion.
Well, and I'm a little bit disappointed, spoilers, I guess, but in season 4, which they're filming right now, due to COVID, and because if you know anything about Tig Notaro, who plays Jet Reno, she has a history. She's a breast cancer survivor, and she had to limit her travel. So she's not going to be in it as much as they had originally written. And I was like, well, at least she's still going to be in it. But I was like, oh, I literally could watch just a show of Stamets and Reno going back and forth. They are the Kirk and Spock, or I'm sorry, the McCoy and Spock that I want.
Yeah.
And they do it so well. And they even have that little, they know that they don't get along, but they still have that, I guess, playfulness about it, especially as we see by the end of season 3.
I mean, I don't know how you guys feel. I even like Tilly because I feel like
That's what I was about to say.
Star Trek has not had a Tilly.
I did not care for her, Chad, at first, and then she grew on me. And then when I heard, is she the first one or is it Stamets? The other reason I like it is because, is it her or Stamets that says fuck for the first time in Star Trek history?
She does.
She does.
She does because because she says it and then she goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," and he says something like, "No, say it, say it," and then he says it, and then it goes on.
Yeah, that's another reason why I love the show. Not because they're saying fuck, but they're making people. I like it for similar reasons that I also like Orville. Orville is just the next generation. They took the next generation and pretended that instead of pretending these weren't humans, they put human people in those next generation plots, right?
Yeah.
Plus, Norm Macdonald is a slime monster, so I'm all for that. Yay, Orville, Norman.
Yeah,
I literally
like
Norm and I agree. I love Orville too. Matter of fact, I keep waiting for season 3.
Yeah,
come on, Hulu, get to it.
So I'm with Chad. I didn't like her at first, and then she grew. In fact, I was watching it and smiling last night on episode 4 that she's in. I
will tell you, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep cutting you off, but there's one interaction between Giorgio, Culber, Stamets, and Tilly's in the room, and she turns around and goes, "What just happened?" I laughed so hard I almost woke up my entire family. It was her comedic timing is excellent.
You know what I love about that character? Because I was watching, my wife didn't start watching it till season 3. Because she watched like 1 or 2 episodes with me, but then I would just watch them around, and she wasn't really interested. And then for some reason, the kids started to watch season 3 with me. Is what it boiled down to. And I haven't even got them to go back and do season 1. I keep pushing them, but yeah. But anyway, they all love it because they started with season 3, and I looked at Dana and I was like, "Now listen, there's a character that reminds me of you sometime. Do not take that as an insult, but it's Tilly, and the reason, and from the first season." She is more than capable, but she is so filled with self-doubt and so concerned about everything and how will this look and how do I get promoted and how do I do this and how do I do that. That I was like, oh my God, it's like having a conversation with my wife sometimes. and I say all that because I think that's what makes that character really, really human for me, is that there is those moments of, and I think also there's that just like you said, she drops the F-bomb, but it's also one of those things where what would you say in a situation like that?
Absolutely. The other person I want to talk a little bit about is Doug Jones, whom we've all 3 have met. And if you ever get a chance to go to a convention and you think, oh man, I'd love to meet Doug Jones is everything you think he's going to be, and then another 50%.
Yeah.
He's and I can say this, and the other 2 can say this. We've met a lot of people at conventions. A lot of people. We've worked with them behind the walls at conventions. So we've seen them just as people. Doug Jones is one of the sweetest human beings you'll ever meet in your entire life, and is wonderful to fans. Wonderful.
Yeah.
And it warms the cockles of my heart. Well, not that. I mean, he's had a great career, but that he is now, what is Doug Jones? Is at least 60, right?
He's in his 60s, yeah.
He's 60, and has probably got the best role of his career.
Yeah.
And now, go ahead.
I mean, he had done things that were noteworthy before, but
of course, Del Toro was giving him wonderful parts. But I mean,
that's what I'm about to say.
Star Trek. Well, now he's a Star Trek captain.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that in next episode.
We'll talk about that in next episode. But Saru, and they gave him a good backstory.
Yeah. Well, and I guess jumping back to what people, the commentary is that I've heard some people make about why they have struggled with Star Trek Discovery. I've even heard some people say, well, if there's all these Kelpians, why haven't we seen them anywhere else? And I'm like, did you make the same argument with Enterprise? If there's these Denobulans, where are all the other Denobulans? I'm like, yeah, you could. The only one that gets away with that is Deep Space Nine, because they made Odo for a while the only one of his kind until we, spoiler, found out where he came from.
What?
Well, isn't DS9? Isn't that where we got introduced to the Trill as well? The Trill weren't in any of the other ones.
No, they're in one Next Generation episode.
My
Are
apologies.
they really?
Yes, because Riker has to temporarily serve
I
as a
can't
host,
argue
which
with him,
humans
Chad.
can't
I
do.
don't remember.
Which humans can't do. He has to temporarily serve as a host. But the Trills at that point did not have the spots or anything. They looked just human, and you found out they had a worm in them. But yes,
Ew.
it's in one episode of The Next Generation, and Riker has to temporarily serve as a host until they can find a more suitable host. And it almost kills Riker.
I'm vaguely remembering that episode now. So
Yeah. And so, but yeah. I think that. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I have heard people say that. Well, if there's all these Kelpians, why don't we see them in any other series? And I'm like, I'm not going to go down this rabbit hole.
oh my God, people.
Everything.
It's Star Trek. It's Brave. Just shut up. Just enjoy the ride.
Listen,
That's
if I
what his
don't
wife says to him too.
if I don't get a
Shut up,
lieutenant,
Chad, and enjoy the ride.
if I don't get a lieutenant commander that's a Horta in one of these spinoffs,
Well, if
fans are listening.
hopefully we'll get. This is a bitch I know you've said, and actually I agree with it too. Hopefully now we'll get some Gorn.
oh yeah. Well, and that's the thing too. It's the thing I love about Star Trek is also what's so complicated about Star Trek. And part of it is because Roddenberry did just rehash a lot of, and again, we've said it before. If you haven't seen Chaos on the Bridge, Panic on the Bridge or Chaos on the Bridge,
It doesn't
Okay.
matter.
one of them.
Just
Look it
go
up.
Google it. You'll find it.
It's badminton on the bridge.
No, it's not. You need to check out that movie though because it's phenomenally well done. It's
Stop
William Shatner
listening to us
hosted.
right now.
We'll wait. Go watch it. Come back.
Come back.
But
Be back.
it mentions that Roddenberry did originally just think we'll just recycle the original series. If people liked it, we'll do it again.
And
I think that's a little bit of the problem because as we had Peter David as a guest on our show, and I love the novel Q Squared, but even talking about it, I said I love Q Squared, and he goes, yeah, because Q is just Trelane rewritten.
Yeah.
And so I think that's one of the things because, that's one of the reasons Star Trek fan fiction is so rich because so much of it would be like, yeah, what happened if Trelane and Q fought? Well, I don't know. It'd be cool to watch. So all these things that could happen, people are like, well, what about this? What about this? And for some people, it pulls them away from the show. For others, it brings them further in.
What are other things that you guys like about it? So I love the characters. I love the special effects. There's things that drove me a little crazy at first that they've kind of fixed. And I don't want to go in too much into to our second episode.
I love, and I didn't think I would. It took me a little bit, but I do love the fact that they fished out that artwork from phase 2 or the original motion picture artwork.
Yeah.
That was done by what's his name? He worked on Star Wars.
Ralph McQuarrie.
Yeah, the design of the Discovery was basically a discarded idea they had for how they could retrofit the Enterprise, and somebody just went, "No, we're going to make this. We're going to make it work. We're going to." And I love that. I at first I was like, I don't know, it doesn't fit with the rest of the. Especially once I found out it was set, before Captain Kirk. I was like, that doesn't. But then once I got into it, and the entire Black Alert travel system, the mycelial network, and all that stuff, I was like, yeah, no, okay, I'm good with it now. It makes sense. I'm along for the ride. You got me. And so I do think that's cool. I think it's interesting that they didn't say, oh, here's another Constitution class starship that looks like all the other ones that the original series used, because they just reused models. So
one of the other things that I really like about it, and we're getting a little bit into season 2, is Anson Mount as Pike.
Yeah.
I didn't, and once again, the first episode or two, when they reintroduced them and introduced Spock, young Spock, I was like, wasn't quite on board. And then as the season went, I just got totally on board and loved it. His earnestness, which at first was off-putting, if that makes sense to you all.
have you all watched the short treks yet?
No.
Yes, I've watched all of them. Yes.
Okay, so you've seen that. There's a very good short trek that I think actually does a good job of, if you've never seen the original series, showing the human part of Spock. And basically the plot to it is Una, number 1, and Spock are stuck in an elevator, a turbo lift. They're stuck in a turbo lift together, and they have to figure out how to pass the time.
Yep.
But I really like Anson Mount's version of Pike. I really do. Honestly, I like it more than Bruce Greenwood's.
Really?
Yeah, I think he's great as Captain Pike.
Well, I know,
Bruce-
but I just love Bruce. Greenwood had him and Peter Weller had the best lines in both those movies, right?
Oh yeah. Well, I
So,
was to say,
Bruce Greenwood had that "Your dad saved," blah blah blah. Oh my
Yeah.
god, it is fan-fucking-tastic.
No,
Well, I was gonna
that
say-
line is great.
You
That
know what I mean?
line-
Chad is like, I
No, that's
dare
one of
you
those-
to do better.
Yeah, that's one of the best lines.
Shivers,
That is an
shivers.
amazing line. But
Shivers.
however, I feel like Anson Mount brings a little bit more to the Pike character.
Well,
that's-
he probably does.
and what I wanted to
Jesus,
say,
That's that line.
that Jesus and Bruce Greenwood didn't.
Oh man, don't
Jeffrey Hunter,
don't bring down the Jesus.
Jeffrey Hunter, good enough to play our Lord and Savior, but not good enough to bring back for a second pilot. Anyway,
I had to do it.
by the way, I just want to say though, the thing about that is, and I agree, but I think you're both right, because Bruce Greenwood's
welcome.
Pike, Bruce Greenwood's Pike is a foil to get Kirk where he needs to be. Anson Mount's Pike is his own character, and that's narratively they serve the purposes they have to serve. And so I agree, like both of them, and that's what I think. It's one of those things that as you think about what the character is supposed to be, and there's all these people, by the way, on Twitter, because I love talking to Star Trek people on Twitter and following conversations on that keep saying, okay, when is he going to bring in horses? There has to be scenes with horses, because in The Cage, he talks about his love of horses and things like that. And then some people are like, are we finally going to get to see old Archer, because Archer loved water polo, and maybe we can do a Pike Archer meeting.
Chad, what's the problem with water polo?
Drowning the horses, you see.
What did I say? Is your name Chad? Is your name Chad?
No,
Your name is Chad.
I was building up to it though, because
Hey,
you would have
credit where
water
credit's
polo
due,
and
George
polo.
Carlin. Nakatomi
Yeah.
never forget.
Anyway, no,
They could get those floaties on those horses and it wouldn't have the.
No, Chad, don't take it one too far. It's cruel to the horses and the joke. George knew where to end it. Keep going, James.
horse floaties are huge, by the way. You ever see a horse floaty?
Yeah, but it's usually on its back, dead down a river.
Well, horse floaties, by the way, have a human head on them. Anyway, no, I think that's what I give credit to Discovery though, because I think Discovery has done a great job, and you know, allegedly they're plotted out through 2027 for this expanding Star Trek universe. We're getting Prodigy, which is a children's show. It's aimed at children, and actually some people are online were upset about that. Why are they making a TV show for kids? Because we need fans that will be around in 50 years. That's why they're doing it. Let me walk you through marketing 101. Let me go back to that article from 2015. Anyway, but I think none of that, and you know, Strange New Worlds allegedly was not, I mean, it was going to be, Pike was going to be one-off, one season, much like Lorca, but fans responded so positively, according to, why am I blanking on Orsi's writing partner's name?
Kurtzman, is that true?
Kurtzman.
Really?
Kurtzman has said that they, you know, that they thought,
They
well,
got
maybe we'll-
Rebecca Romaine and him, and they were only going to do one season with him.
Yep, that's allegedly. That's, you can read interviews with him. He thought it was a great get, especially Rebecca Romaine. No offense meant to Anson Mount, but he thought, oh, and of course, you know, if you were Rebecca Romaine, if you're going to play a established Star Trek character, why wouldn't you play one?
By the
that
way,
Michelle
if he
Barrett
ever
played?
listens to this show, Ethan Peck's going to go, "Hey."
I missed the joke.
He's Spock,
Um,
Joe.
Oh, I had no idea what the actor's name was.
It's
See, that's how
Gregory-
little I give two shits. He's
his-
okay. Him and his
his-
scraggly beard.
His grandfather was a hack named Gregory.
Oh, is that seriously?
You
Is
didn't know
his
that?
lineage?
Seriously, you didn't, yeah.
No,
that
I
is
did
his
not know
grandfather.
that.
I didn't know that. You could, well, you know
Look it up.
what? I'm sure I could, but I'll take your word for it.
Um,
I don't know enough to argue.
But Kurtzman actually said that the first show, the decision they made that was purely driven by the fan response was Strange New Worlds. And that's why it was not announced immediately after the season ended. They had to get all the contracts in line. And so if you look at season two had been ended for a while before they, matter of fact, the only thing that started to give it away was Anson Mount kept getting asked on Twitter, is this going to happen? Could it happen? Could it happen? And finally, I think it was about 3 months after the season ended, he changed his location on Twitter to just say Strange New Worlds. And then everybody was like, "Oh, he's giving us a hint," and sure enough, he
I-
was.
I-
and it's on
I
the
mean,
contract.
That's the
And
one I'm
that's-
most excited about. I'm more
Yeah.
excited about that than I am a new movie.
Well, and that's the other thing I should say as well. Some fans are also upset with Discovery because it's not episode contained. And Kurtzman has said with Strange New Worlds, yes, there will be threads that continue between, but it will not be this overarching thing. It's going to be episodic.
Mhm.
And so some fans also said, we just want episodes. We want something we can watch in an hour and 10 minutes and just enjoy. So
Mhm.
that is a critique some fans have, is that, Discovery, it does have episodes, but it is not, you don't get everything resolved in that hour and 10 minutes.
No. And
So,
and back on Pike, the reason why I like season 2 of him as Pike is because, yeah, we've had Bruce Greenwood. Yeah, we've had Jesus, who have.
Don't you blow off Jesus and Gregory Peck Jr.
But you never get the. Hold on. I got a cough.
oh, that's a lung. Did y'all see that lung fly out?
Oh my
If you're
God.
not watching on, if you're not watching on,
I actually
YouTube,
thought he said I have a call, and I muted myself and it was flipped to going because I was looking something up about Discovery, and I thought, who's calling him?
By the way, our viewers are going to love watching this on YouTube, watching me as we've progressed through this, as me having a runny nose, me turning off the mic to cough, me turning off the mic to just have a complete facial breakdown here as this COVID vaccine is
Is
just
this COVID
killing
just
me.
COVID.
But anyway, the reason I like Pike in season 2 of Discovery is because in all the other iterations, we never really gotten a sense of, well, why is he so important to the story? Why is he important to the mythos of Enterprise? And we start to see that here. We start to see how, like, Kirk had huge shoes to fill when he took over the Enterprise, because Pike is amazing. And honestly, if Pike had done one thing, if Fates hadn't got him, according to season 2, he would have ended up on that bridge with Malcolm McDowell.
Yeah. Well, and that's the same thing. And a lot of fans are also hoping, because it is now canon, because going back to that computer screen in Discovery season 1, where Saru asked for best captains, Captain Robert April was on there. And if you're a diehard Star Trek fan, he was the first captain to take out the Enterprise. And so another thing a lot of fans are hoping is that we'll get to meet an Admiral Robert April or something to see whose shoes Pike had to fill. It's been established outside of the things, and it all goes back to, by the way, the original proposal for the show. When Roddenberry first pitched it, it was Captain Robert April.
Yeah.
And it eventually evolved. Now, that being said, so that's a lot of fans are hopeful because it will fill in those gaps, like you're talking about, Chad, that, Kirk did have, Pike was a hero.
Yeah.
He was a big deal. And then Kirk was the youngest person to achieve the rank of captain, and he's got to come in and take, not only is he the youngest, but then he's got to fill in for Pike. That's a great point in and of itself. But yeah, by the way, Joe, I just looked this up real quick. These characters were first introduced in the original Star Trek series, and then these actors, talking about the new actors, were cast in the roles for Star Trek Discovery season 2. Due to positive fan response, Kurtzman expressed interest in trying to bring the actors back in their own spin-off series. He began development in March 2020, and the show, Paramount Plus agreed to order it officially in May 2020. That's how quickly that turnaround was, but it was due to fan response.
Huh.
So, by the way, if you don't believe people are listening to you, it's not that they're not fans, it's that your ideas are bad. Anyway, let me pitch Trelane. Now, Trelane will be an entire show where we follow Trelane on adventures.
Oh, all right.
But, I do want to say the other thing Discovery did that I appreciated was bring back classic characters from the original series that I love in some way, including Harcourt Fenton Mudd.
Yes, agreed.
And Mudd was always kind of a comedic character in the original series, but you could tell that he had a sinister edge, and Discovery showed that, much like Chad was saying with Pike. We got to see a Mudd that was, he's still funny at times, but he's also downright vicious. And you can tell that by the time Kirk gets to him and he's older, why he's still on the run.
Yeah.
And I appreciated Rainn Wilson as Pike. As Mudd. I like Rainn Wilson. I didn't know though. I was concerned, and then I saw it, and I'm like, no, that's Mudd. He nails it.
Yeah, no, they did a really good job of bringing him back, and for the fans, certain characters, and then they've done an excellent job of casting.
Yeah.
There's a good character actor who's playing a villain, whom I'm assuming is coming back. Where I'm watching season 3, whom I'm assuming is going to come back later in that season.
I think I know the one that you're talking about, and yes,
I can see that one coming a mile away.
And by the way, there's if you are watching, the other thing that I like about the show is their casting. Kurtzman or whoever is doing the casting, I appreciate, because they also have, I'm just going to say their geek bona fides are in order. You have Margot Kidder's, I believe, niece playing a character, and I didn't know it was Margot Kidder's niece, but I'm like, she looks familiar. She's in makeup, but I know that. Sure enough, I was like, oh yeah, she looks like a young Margot Kidder.
Yeah.
And
Who
so,
the hell are you talking about?
how far are you into season 3? I don't want to give
Episode 5.
Yeah.
Have you
If
met
she's in season 3, don't worry about it. I'll wait.
Okay.
We'll wait till next week.
Yeah, you'll see more of her. The other thing that I do like as well, and talking about the casting, y'all are probably far enough in season 3. I know we're going to talk about this, but I love the fact that they play around with the admirals a little bit. The admirals in Discovery are, they've always been problematic in Star Trek everywhere. I mean, Kirk always had his run-ins with them, but whether we're talking about before season 3 or after, the admirals still don't get a great shake. They're not great people initially, but I think Discovery humanizes them a lot more.
Yeah.
So,
all right, guys. So is anything else you want to say about the first 2 seasons before we come back and kind of talk about some episodes and a few things for next week's?
No, I'm talking about the casting, and Chad referred to this earlier. Probably hold a gun to my head, and I would not have thought this from the first episode. And I've said this before. I think my favorite character is Stamets, and I think it was established for me in the first season, because Stamets is the creator of the technology that powers that ship, and for a while, he's the only key that turns that engine, so to speak. That being said, and again, going back to Joe's point, Captain Lorca and him do not always see eye to eye. And there's a great conversation that happens between them that I think captures one of the biggest challenges of Star Trek. Is it a military? Is Starfleet military?
Yeah.
Or are they exploration? And there's an entire scene where Stamets says, "This is my creation. I did this." And, Lorca basically responds, "This is our war and we have to win it." Not in those words, but it's that great moment between those two. And I think that's for me in the first season when I'm like, God, Stamets is a fascinating character. And it happens a couple more times in the show where he gets that moment of, do I still want to even be here? And yet he keeps showing up. And I think there's something to that that has endeared me to that character.
Yeah.
Great. Well cast too. Anthony Rapp as Stamets. So
Yeah. Chad, anything else?
No, I'm good. I can't wait for next episode.
Chad, real quick, I
Yes.
know other people can't see this. What does your full comment say? Coconut is finger what?
Nails.
Oh, that's not true, Chad. I don't think you understand anything about the agriculture that affects the growth of coconut.
Because, it's not the taste, it's the texture.
And with that, thank you so much for tuning in to Bonehead Weekly, where next week will be
Jesus
just
didn't
as
like coconut
enthralling.
either, James.
I don't think that's true, Chad. I don't know enough to argue with you, but I don't think you're quoting the Bible, sir.
You know what he did with that lime? He just ate the damn lime and threw the coconut in the shit.
Oh, you mean with your dreams?
They're all dead and buried. Thanks for tuning in to Bonehead.